think about it till right about 5 minutes.
Well, it looks like it's 5:30 and time to call our this special board meeting to order. And the only item that we have on the agenda is the student transportation services, and that I guess is the contract. Do you want me to hand out both of these at the same time? What?
Whatever you want to do, I just put it on.
Let's just do it both at the same time. Pass that to Vernon. This to Lowell. This to Nancy. This to Margaret.
Whatever his name is.
Troy. This to Bart. This to Marcia. And, yep. I will look at one. If you guys need to move closer so you can hear, that's fine. We don't hear. Okay, so I guess we'll just turn the floor over to you and let you tell us what we have here in front of us.
Okay. The first one, there's two contracts. The first one is the agreement to able to sign the second contract to service. So the first one is the agreement to the right to contract, basically is how I called it. The board agrees to allow the contractor, the bus driver, whoever owns the bus, to then contract for that ongoing perpetual renewable contract every year. The second one is the actual contract for the servicing. And I've tried to set it up so it starts as a year, but automatically renews kind of thing, so you don't have to keep coming back and doing things to make it happen. And it sets out in there, it's a 1-year duration that can be renewed in perpetuity, over and over and over, unending, unless it's absolutely terminated by somebody intentionally. Defines a school year, whatever that's going to be filled in. There's a lot of blanks that I don't have the specific information. This is a sort of a basic contract. The contract is to be signed and returned to the board by the contractor on or before July 30th each calendar year, each school year, excuse me. The contract has to be approved by the board on or before August 1st. These dates are just ones I put in there, they're not carved in stone. The contractor is to utilize a specific bus route as described in here. And then each year, the pickup and delivery times are approved each year by the board to transport the students back and forth to school. If you're going to make changes to the route, they need prior board approval. I have it set up that if there's modifications in the school year calendar resulting in less than 168 days, it's not going to affect the base pay. But these are basic, my understanding is that a lot of these terms came from prior contracts, so I'm probably just talking to the choir out here. Some of these terms about the fuel compensation and all that kind of stuff, is that pretty much familiar to everybody? Yes? Okay. You know more about it than I do. I'm just going to walk on here. The contractor can assign, transfer, or sell their contract to another, subject to board approval. So it gets to be moved on to other contractors. You just have to have it board approved, and it moves to somebody else. Compensation has a particular sum to be filled in as base pay for the year, and then there's all the calculations for mileage and all that kind of stuff that you're used to. There's obligations by the board and the district. They're supposed to provide, install, maintain the GPS, and then they utilize the equipment, is reviewed, is calculated, all that kind of technical stuff is in there. District shall not operate routes that have been contracted to contractors or usurp the contractor's right to service, except something comes in regulatory that you can't do it. I'm talking about statutory things that come in from the state or the county or the feds that prohibit problems. Or let's say there's too few students, they need to combine routes, that gets to be addressed in here. If there's a vacant route without a contractor, they can hire somebody in the meantime until it gets worked out in the contract. If there's a violation by the contractor, what I've done is I've tried to put in what are called breach and cure provisions. That means, for example, contractor's gone out and got a DUI, for example, and there's a fix-it to it, and there's a certain number of days to fix the problem, and then we can move on. I think there's a place later on here where there's some sort of called? I haven't looked at this today, sorry. Where you have to turn papers in for something or other and you don't turn them in by a deadline, there's a grace period of like 10 days to fix that you haven't turned it in before the contract's terminated. So if there's a mistake going on, it doesn't automatically terminate. There's what's called a cure. If somebody breaks the contract, there's a cure period where things can be fixed. And if they're not fixed, then we go back and fix it. Then we have a bigger problem. But it gives time for everybody to do something so it doesn't just blow up in everybody's faces. Okay? Then there's contractor vehicle requirements. You have to have a school bus adequate to transport students. There's not a specific body count for the bus because it may be a short rate. You need a short bus as opposed to a long one. You have to maintain the Missouri standards. You have to meet current federal and state regulations. You have your inspection form you have to do each year. You have prepare your record of the daily re-trip inspection. All those kinds of specific inspections, insurance things that are normal, those are your obligations. Driver obligations, they're specific. You have a contractor vehicle, then you have the driver, because a contractor apparently may not always be the driver and has somebody else to drive it. You have to be drivers and substitute drivers receive prior board approval before transporting. Everybody has to present a clean child abuse and criminal background check, standard stuff. Comply with regulations. If you violate traffic violations as set forth in a specific statute, you have to report them. There's something about reports deemed necessary by DESI, submitted by certain times. Dressing appropriately, perform your duties, provide your physical exam certificate no more than 90 days before the commencement of the school year, and adhere to the laws. That's your basic service contract. A lot of it's just rehash of everything you've seen before. So that's that one. Those are the two contracts. One is to write your contract for the right to enter this contract. It's a one-time thing. The servicing is renewable in perpetuity. You can transfer it, sell it, assign it, whatever you want. Just subject to board approval so they know what's going on, basically. I think it's the main gist of it. Is that kind of a basic covering? There's just more in detail I need to do on that. I figure they know more about that than I do in many respects.
Well, you're really presenting this to the board because they're the one that
They were looking at me. I want to make sure they knew what was going on.
So they might have questions. I know some of you have addressed questions to me.
I do have one question on
Certainly.
number 8. Each contractor and driver shall provide physical exam. So if you're just a contractor, not going to be a driver, you still have to do that.
We do not.
I think that would be.
Here I am. Okay. The form I was working off of for some of this language had that in there. It can certainly be changed. Since it's only the driver that's actually driving, I think that's a good change to be made. Each driver should provide.
What number was that?
Number 8 under driver obligation.
Second to the last page.
Because we probably will have contractors that aren't driving.
Right. I agree. Mistake on my part.
That's minor.
I have several questions.
Please.
I'll start with the contract we're talking about for bus routes. What's the, is there any legalities in the state of Missouri to offer a contract in perpetuity from a public entity? I mean, is it possible for a contract to be offered in perpetuity? from
I don't
a
see why
government
it
entity?
wouldn't be, because each year it's revisited. It can be terminated.
What's the reasons for termination?
Somebody's violated the contract to such a point that they cannot be renewed. Somebody gets arrested, thrown in jail, they can't drive, they don't have a driver's license. There could be reasons why they couldn't drive, for example. They died, they couldn't continue the contract.
So how does that affect, I mean, if that happens, how does it affect the other contract that you have drawn? I mean, are they gonna receive money back from the school if their contract is terminated?
There's provisions in here about the termination
I
of up to
know
8.
that, but I'm talking about the money.
Which might, you have to speak up a little bit. I'm
The
sorry.
money that you're suggesting that the drivers pay for their contract. But if it's terminated, do they get the money back because it's been terminated?
On this one, the one sheet, it talks about that should the board with reasonable notice rescind the agreement, or it shall pay contractor the fair market value of their right to contract. So if they paid for something and it's terminated, especially like that first year, the parties agree on a fair market value. It's not an automatic sum or percentage, because each contract apparently is different for each driver because they have different routes.
So who's gonna determine fair market value?
That's a willing buyer, willing seller. You get together and you mediate an agreement. That's fair market value, is a willing buyer, willing seller is the definition. So I would assume if two people literally cannot, it's time to bring in a mediator that's trained to negotiate between two parties to come to an agreement. Did you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there, on the district board obligations, is there any, I mean, what I'm wondering, is there a way to add, or is it worth adding, I mean, some consequences, or, you know, if mileage is being turned in inaccurately, I mean, is there some consequences, or?
At that point, there can be terms written into the contract that if there is a belief by the district or the board that there is a fraudulent or inaccurate, deliberate, intentional to do something wrong, you can have a breach cure provision put in there, that if the board believes there's a problem over here, then they can say, hey, you have X number of days to prove to us that there's not a problem. If the problem is, if it's proven that there's not a problem, everybody moves on. If it's proven there's a problem, then we have a breach issue that needs to be handled with a breach of contract provision, that there'll be some sort of consequence.
So every violation, it has a cure rate?
It can be, there can be. I've not put 150,000 of them in here, but I wanted to put enough in here to present the
There's
concept.
some, in my opinion, that, you know, there's lots of things that can happen that shouldn't have a cure rate. We have teachers, and if they do things, they're sent home immediately.
Then there should be a provision put in here that says if X happens, then the consequence is Y, termination. The reason to have a cure, though, however, is that you have to have some sort of proof that there's been an absolute breach of the contract, and the cure time is to make sure that each side knows there's been a deliberate violation.
I'm good with that if
breach.
you're tardy to bus lineup or you different things, but if you commit murder on Saturday night, you don't need to be on the bus on Monday morning.
Have you been convicted yet?
Our teachers would be sent home on administrative leave for that. You don't.
Just because
not-
wait a
Yeah.
minute, you're talking legal terms here, that until you're convicted, you haven't committed murder. As stupid as that sounds.
Correct.
You can be accused, but you're innocent until proven guilty.
Well, I don't want them driving my bus.
But do you know they did it?
I don't do that with my teachers. I certainly wouldn't do that with anybody else.
But that's the problem. You may have heard that Joe Blow has killed somebody, but do you know for sure that that's true? You may have just heard about it. And just because somebody's arrested doesn't mean they do it. Sorry, defense attorney here.
Well, they're not gonna drive the bus.
At some point, you're talking almost a morals clause. At some point. And we do not have a morals clause put in here other than dressing appropriately, obeying the laws and those sorts of
Right.
things. But if you start talking a morals clause of, well, we think they showed up drunk on 3 times, well,
Well,
let's
we
make
do
sure.
drug screening and we would know, so if that happens.
But you have some proof, is my point though. You have a proof that there's been a breach of the contract. Without an absolute proof, why would you want to risk a breach and then be sued for wrongful breach of contract? I'm just saying you want some specifics that are real standards to know that there has been an absolute breach, for certain. I could think somebody did something, but until it's been proven and convicted, and even then I sometimes wonder. But that's it's almost a morals clause issue at that point that the board would have to address, whether you really want to go down that slippery slope. Now, if you want to put in that there's been a conviction for certain crimes, then that,
For convictions, sometimes.
Doesn't the driver obligation number 9 cover any school district policies? And if they violated that, wouldn't it go before the
They're not
board?
employees.
Do what?
They're not employees.
But they're still bound by the district policies on this contract.
on the contract,
For
they're bound to it.
policies for staff misconduct or for employees, we don't have policies for contractor misconduct.
So what problem are you thinking of?
Well,
that you would-
I've sent roofers home that are smoking on campus. We have a tobacco-free campus, you go home. they're not employees, so there's certain things that they're not bound to as employees.
Does it-
So if we're going to do that, I think we need to develop a policy for contractor servers.
Doesn't number 9 there bind them to the policies of the school district?
We don't have a policy for that.
It also says
For all
all
employees.
applicable
But
state
they're
and
not
federal
employees.
statutes.
Do what?
It also says all applicable state and federal statutes.
So we have a staff conduct and an employee conduct, so we would need a contracted service conduct. We don't have a policy for that. So they would not fall to a policy that exists because we don't have one. Because they're not employees, which would be a fairly easy remedy. We would just.
So the board would just create a policy?
Yeah.
Correct. We'd have MSBA drop something, yes. And then it would be tied to that, yes.
I would just make one suggestion that it would be an objective standard, not a subjective, to a point as best you can. Because when it becomes too subjective and it's one person's opinion, that's when you start running into problems. Make it as flexible as you can within a range and not one person's opinion to override an entire contract. You follow what I'm trying to say?
I get it, but when you're working with children and minors, there's some things that you just don't overlook.
There's still an issue of proof. You want to make sure that somebody has actually violated a contract before you start having a legal breach of a contract. Whatever those
We take a
policies.
driver's off for a lot less than that. We have one for them allowed to drive.
It may be a case of simply setting down exactly what those issues are and codify them. You could attach them to the policies attached here too, and attach that. That makes it a little easier to, rather than put it right in the contract, you could do it as an attachment if you want.
Like a policy, if it references a
The board
policy.
says policy,
Yeah.
well, policy.
I think the best remedy that I see would be a policy, just like the teachers have, the staff members have.
Then just simply refer to that specifically and attach it.
Yeah.
And if it, is that changeable at all? Does it change year by year at all?
It can.
Then
And it
just-
reflects statute.
Then you might want to say as to the current school year policy, so that it's flexible, that it covers whatever year of this renewable contract it is, that it refers to that year's policies rather than a static set of policies, if it can be changed. So the policies of the 2016-2017 school years would be reflected in this contract, but the next year when you have 18-19, it would be that set of policies to reference, because that's what's in vogue at that time.
Does this sound good?
Because we've had allegations. We've had allegations that were not proven. But they were serious enough allegations that we felt we needed to act and remove a driver. And,
Or anyone. I mean, it
I mean,
it'd
Yeah.
have to
doing
be,
the children. It's
yeah.
right.
Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm still going. There's a little confused, back, and I guess I'm gonna jump back and forth. Back to the fair market value.
Are you talking about on the agreement?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then on the agreement, I mean, honestly, I think we need a number in there or a formula, because in the district board obligations in the contract, the other contract 4A, you have fair market value not to
Correct.
exceed the rate of 80% of their prior taxable year's 1099.
Correct, you cannot
So-
have them equal each other. The agreement for right is based on a lump sum payment that's been made by a driver. The service contract is a renewable annual contract that accumulates 1099s that you can reflect back on to get an 80%. You don't have the same ability in the agreement to have the same things match up head to head. So I made one fair market value, which is negotiable based on the circumstances of that contractor with the board, versus I have an ongoing agreement with a base pay and mileage, and I have a 1099 that I can reference back for a percentage. Very different results, because there's different computations based on different bases. You cannot make them the same, in my opinion. Because what 1099 or what 80% of what are you gonna get? And if you look at the language I put in there, it's up not to exceed 80%. Because the circumstances of that situation may only warrant a 45%, or a 52%, or a 79, or an 80%. It's up to not to exceed a certain amount. But fair market value is completely negotiable because all your variables are in play on the agreement but not on the contract.
So what's the dollar amount that we're putting in the blank?
I don't know because that wasn't given to me. My understanding is each contractor has a different contract because each one has a different bus route, so there's no set amount to put in there unless I'm mistaken on that.
Is that right? That's right.
Because we paid them.
Yeah, they're all paid different.
I'm assuming they're different because each driver has a different route of a different length, different concrete versus dirt and so on, so everyone's different. And since each contractor is contracting individually, they're gonna have their name on there, they have their own specific route on there, their own specific dollar amount, so each one is unique and discrete to that particular person. Not a generic overall, which is more of a contract as opposed to the agreement.
Is there on the insurance requirement of $1 million? And I'm just asking your opinion on this. Is there a way to protect the school with some type of indemnity agreement if it exceeds $1 million? Because fear $1 million's not a whole lot.
No, it's not.
Is there a way to protect the school district with some
You
type
can-
of indemnity?
You can put an indemnify and hold harmless, you can. Now, the one thing that concerns me is, you've got insurance of $1 million, and this is, I don't know the answer to this one. Is that per contractor per bus? Or is it every student can sue up to $1 million? I'm not sure how that insurance policy reads for a bus driver. I don't know.
It's $1 million total.
Million total,
Yeah.
which will be exhausted in very short order if you have 65 students on a bus. And it rolls over a cliff or whatever. I'm not sure what the answer to that one is, because I don't know what the policy says. I don't know if the school needs to be added as an insured party, if there needs to be an indemnification hold harmless clause. I'm not sure, until somebody tells me what they want.
What I've been able to find out on that whole harmless and that indemnify agreement is it's basically for big contractors, multiple bus routes that hires, I don't want to say less than qualified drivers that might go out and do something or whatever, then a lot of your bigger schools, put them in there to the bigger contractor. What I can get out of it is if something happened here where you have individual contractors, it would basically fall back on the contractor. If it went over $1 million, it'd fall back on them and basically force them into bankruptcy and then the school wouldn't get anything. The $1 million would still be doing
Because even if you go over the cap, it's still gonna fall back on the individual. And I don't know of anybody in this room that could probably pay anything over $1 million anyway on a policy of that nature.
it. Yeah.
The school's gonna be named regardless.
Yeah.
The
That's
indemnity-
what was it added for the additional insured in the school and the contractors covered too.
Right. But anything over that is fair game. If you have an indemnification hold harmless clause, it simply means that if the school is out money, the bus driver has to reimburse if there's a judgment. That's a
What would
function.
happen if the bus driver didn't have it?
It's not gonna get paid. I mean, just because you have a judgment doesn't mean it's gonna get paid.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a reality check in whatever you do. You can have a judgment until you collect it. It's pretty much worthless. But I do have a concern on the insurance because if you had a major accident involving multiple students, you're gonna cap that to nothing flat. One student alone can cap it. And I would never wish that on anybody. That student would just be in terrible shape. I would not wish that on anyone.
I think I feel that a better way to go on that is to, maybe for the bus drivers as an association, either try to find an umbrella policy that will go from 1 to 3 million, or 1 to 2 million.
Like it's Proctor Jarvis, and then it was Proctor Jarvis, is that what that insurance company's called? Like those truck drivers, do they do anything like that? Bus drivers?
Well, I'm not sure, but I think it needs to be looked into because I think it needs to be more than me. And, as I understand it, Wilson, the superintendent, before he looked into getting an umbrella, and he said it couldn't be done. But,
Can't because they're not our employees.
yeah. But as a
But they could.
As a
As
bus
an
drivers
association, they could.
association, there's a possibility that they can get an umbrella. They may have to take all their original insurance as a group and go do it. But there's a really good possibility that they could get a higher rate than we do.
I would think so too, like a fleet of trucks does, something like
I would say if you found the correct underwriter,
And
you probably find insurance.
that would give you far more, if they could, that would give you far more protection than a hold harmless agreement with individuals.
A whole harm agreement only goes so far as anybody can get into somebody's pockets, plain and simple. I use them a lot, they're not always that helpful.
If we were contracting with one contractor that had big insurance rates, big insurance coverage, the whole harmless agreement would be worthwhile.
that. Does this say that if the driver of a contractor, their employee, does something, is that clear that it's still that contractor?
Well, respondeat superior is still gonna kick in because the law says if you're employed by somebody else, it's gonna kick it upstairs to the person that employed you.
Okay.
If the lawn mowing helper runs into somebody's car, lawnmower company's still gonna be on the hook.
Okay.
Bart, you got any more? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I see the wheels turning.
There's a few things that I think are typos more than anything, like there's a.
Gee, that never happened.
There's a. What's it called? Kind of, let me find it on my. On contractor vehicle requirements, number 4B, a re-trip inspection. Wasn't sure what a re-trip inspection was. So the.
You're talking to a non-bus driver right now.
Right
I know.
today, it just hit me that I wonder if that should be a pre-trip inspection.
I don't know.
I wondered what it was.
I don't know what it is. It was from a model that I used that you told me
I
to
bet
use.
it's pre-trip. Because they do do a
That would make sense.
They do a pre-trip. I just thought of that today.
Thank you for explaining it to me because it was, everything else I had the same typo apparently.
It's easy. And then on the front page, number 7, contractor shall not be reimbursed the percentage of laws for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Okay. Same connection to both places.
Could be right.
That's what this is for.
I'm just a lawyer. I don't understand.
I understand.
We don't understand
We're
yours.
just voting. On the second page,
Okay.
under district board obligations, number 3, at the very end, replacement.
Or removal.
Or.
Yes.
I would not just because of policy, it's some policy. Yeah, and I need to get these numbers from AJ, make sure I
here at the top of this contract for services bus routes, where it says here and after board in quotes.
You want that district?
Yeah, I think that would be better because we don't want the contracts turned into us, the board.
There's a problem though, you'll have to clarify through the contract then, because part of it is district, but part of it is coming back for board approval. Is it district approval or board approval at that point? So it may be a case of adjusting for those
The
terms.
contracts are approved by the board and the drivers are approved by the board. But things should be turned into the district, because they only meet once a month. This makes sense to me. It's probably potato.
No, not really. It's not. It's actually a fairly important thing because is the board doing everything and the district's doing other things? It's not real clear, and I wasn't clear when I did this. That's why I'm turning it over to you to tell me who's doing what. So you're saying that everything for paperwork gets turned into the district, but the board is the one approving and advising, so to speak.
The board
Okay.
approves the routes, that's a DESI requirement, that the school board approves the routes
Okay.
and the drivers.
All right? But paperwork gets turned into the district.
Yes.
So their physicals
Things
and
are
all the
due on
reports,
time.
the reports, their mileage, all that stuff gets turned into the district. Okay.
And then all these numbers, I will verify with the accountant that they're right and give you numbers for those.
So each person will have their own agreement and their own contract, per person with their own, and you'll be giving me the route specifications and so forth. Okay. I can do that. I live to time. I time to live. Did I answer your question as far as that 80% versus that fair market value? I know it's a nebulous
Yeah,
term that we just use a lot in law.
What, on the fair market value?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand the difference, why we can't have it in the other, but,
You want the fair market value in the contract, is that what you're saying, or do you want the
well, it's
80% in
not up to
the
me.
agreement?
I'm talking about on the service for bus routes, I think that's too vague. That's my personal opinion, so.
The 80, to be up to 80% is too big?
No, the.
The fair market value.
Just that, yeah, just leaving that, I feel like it's too
Okay.
vague, but it's not up to me, obviously, so.
Well, one of the things we use on pensions is we use what's called a coverture fraction, which is the number of months of service versus the number of months of the marriage, so to speak. If you want to develop some sort of coverture fraction of how much time versus how much money, and get some sort of fraction, you can maybe work that out if you want to be a little more finite.
I mean,
It would be a flexible fraction based on each person's time and money or whatever, if you want to develop that out. But we do use that in pension work frequently,
70.
and then divide it in half for the other
Why I
one.
heard that. When do we do this stuff?
This board meeting.
Right now.
Well, we need to know what we're gonna do for next board meeting so that I can have this prepared.
What a price. We do have all your questions done now?
I think regarding this, I do. The only other question I had is this, how many routes are we?
That's one question here is how many routes? And the other question is the compensation for dirt and paved. And
What about the sum of money? The sum of money, we need on
So this would be their yearly base
yeah,
pay.
that's gonna be their base. Each one of them's gonna have the base from prior, right?
we're talking about on this agreement.
The money the drivers are.
The sum, yeah.
Right here, we're talking about the sum of money, and it's going to be the amount that
Oh.
we gave them.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Right. So the way we had talked about,
Well, I would assume would go
I
there.
don't know, it's just that.
So do we do that from 20 to 17?
well, I think first we probably need a number of how many.
again, you need to talk to drivers.
Are we talking about the money that they're gonna pay?
Right,
And the number of routes.
for that,
Wasn't that gonna be the amount that they
so
received?
it's gonna match exactly.
Huh?
It's gonna match exactly.
That's what I understood.
Okay, so I will get you that.
I had, before we get too far off the topic, on the topic of the contract I have is between the school board of the Ava R1 school district, is the contract actually with the district, not the school board,
Correct.
technically. So I should revamp it to say by and between the Ava R1 school district and leave out the board
And
there,
the board
correct?
approves routes.
But I'm saying the contract is between the contractor and the
Because
district.
the board can change, match, pay off, settlement, or settlement agreement, exactly, right?
So did we come up with something on the regular contract on the last page on number 9? Did we come up for like at the end of number 9 adding for that current school year? Did we come up with that or did we just talk about it?
Where?
I added it to my,
You did add it to
yes, I
yours,
did,
okay?
the,
'Cause we
the local school,
discussed it.
the local school district policies and procedures as set forth in that year's school, by that, for that school year.
The policy and procedures for that year?
For that current year, yes.
Yes, okay.
Mhm.
So honestly, I mean, I would just get MSBA to take the staff and employee code of conduct and make it appropriate for.
You revamped it for
But we need to have the drivers.
Right.
You know, you don't want to, because once again, that'll get into that issue of, you know, like how we do this route. What day to do it.
I have it in my head, you know, but I don't know if we're gonna have a subcommittee meet with some drivers and come up with a list that we present to the board of routes. That would be my recommendation.
I had to work quick.
Between now and Thursday.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of data already, I mean, we have.
I know, yeah, stacks.
So that would be, you know, somebody that knows it the best, meet with 2 board members, 2 bus drivers.
Well, I'd say pick on your older owners like Rolla and Larry. I said we're gonna pick on the older owners like Rolla and Larry.
That's what I'd like to do.
And,
Date and time right now, because we don't have time.
and meet with a committee Monday, a committee from the board on the
Can we meet
routes.
Monday?
I can't hear you, so what's your...
Well, get up here so you can hear
I can't even
us.
hear you, Randy. I mean, this thing's so loud back
To
there.
meet, we need to meet with,
Not
Does that come
Monday.
in?
Not Monday.
not Monday, because you're not here.
Our office is closed Monday night.
Okay, not Monday, but one day, Tuesday, it's gotta be quick.
Can we get a penciled in copy of this?
I'll attach it to your board briefing.
Well, yeah, that's not what I'm talking about, I'm talking now. Penciled in copy and give it to the drivers and let them go look it over and see what they think and get us a list of names.
Here's what I was-
That's what I would like to say.
I don't have.
We-
It's there.
That's where, I thought we were supposed to be negotiating. Nobody's ever asked us a word about anything.
Well, that's what I was
Not
getting ready.
one word about nothing.
That's what I was getting ready to do. We gotta have input to know how many routes,
And which ones we can consolidate.
and which ones we cut back on, consolidate
By Thursday.
by Thursday.
By Thursday.
Yeah. So you got,
Unless we want to have a special meeting.
22
before
minutes.
school starts. I have a map in my office. So can you meet Tuesday? Randy, Hay, or?
I'm retired, I can meet every day of the week, night or day.
Larry, where you at? Did you meet on Tuesday with Rolla?
Randy, is this about talking about the routes that are being consolidated? They
Yeah.
don't know our routes. You need to talk to the ones whose routes that are being consolidated. They don't know.
Very good point.
Okay, then which ones are those?
Me,
'Cause
Randy Duckworth.
7 and 8, 9 and 10.
Al.
7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. So those are the ones that need
So we
to,
could just meet in here with a big map.
yeah.
Tuesday, I have auditors, but they won't be here Tuesday. Tuesday's the
Just
best day.
open it up to all of those.
That's fine.
Okay. How about all the bus drivers that can attend?
9 o'clock.
Then you can all put your input with the map, with a couple representatives from the board. And that way we'll know exactly how many routes can be consolidated.
And it'll be a public meeting, anybody can come.
Yeah, anybody can come, but that, I'm inviting all the drivers.
Yeah, but the thing is, what if we don't like your contract?
Come back and tell
We ain't gonna
us.
sign it.
Come back and tell us.
And so,
That's why we want to give it to you. That's why I'd like to see a copy of it given to you tonight.
That's
So
what I
you guys
think.
can look at it.
that's what I think, copy of the good news.
Yeah.
Let us look at it.
Can you pencil in a copy? Do we need to approve it before we give it to them? You know?
As a rough draft, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. We're still collecting.
You wouldn't, we don't care if you approve it or not, because if we don't approve it, we don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I realize that.
Exactly.
So I don't know what you mean by pencil in, I just have that.
The changes we've talked
Can you
about.
pencil in the changes you have made in that?
Have you read my writing?
Yeah, it'll be just.
I'd just like to say, I worked here for 40-some years on a one-page contract
Huh?
Have it too.
without any problem. Now all of a sudden, we've got how many pages?
Look it over.
3 and a little bit, plus another.
Exactly. I worked on a one-page contract without a minute's problem for 40-some years. And now then, all of a sudden, we gotta have 75 pages, we gotta have a book to do this. I don't think it'll help a bit out there driving them things.
It's because you signed that buyout. We could still be doing a one page if you wouldn't have signed the buyout.
Litigation
No, we was
nowadays.
already doing a 3 or 4 page. The last
Oh, so
year
now
Brian was here.
It's about the
all of
same
that.
then, you know,
Well,
now
then
it's,
it's the same.
yeah, now it's 3 pages, so it's.
Because we're in a lawsuit world,
I hear my name being mentioned with lawsuits.
it's ridiculous.
it's not bad.
Let her get the changes on there and make some copies and then look and then you make your notes and bring them
We don't
in.
tell us where to make our notes or figure out where your routes are. We can do that. We don't need very long.
Well, you just got Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah. We can do it.
All right. I knew I could count on you.
So we don't, we'll just have that and to present to the board.
All
Thursday.
together. So that, how many,
So I will have.
how many that are in the page?
Approved contracted student services, and I will give you the cleanest copy I have linked to this.
Okay.
And the drivers, and I'll give you the cleanest copy I have. That doesn't mean they can't change it or not.
Right, right. You can.
Does that good?
All right. Board meeting Tuesday, is that what you said? Or we having a
This is,
Anybody that can come, we'll
So
just
it's an
have.
open meeting?
Yeah, it's an open
meeting. What,
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock Tuesday morning?
If I may, on that paragraph 9, I added
the
verbiage
district or board.
as set forth by the AWA R1 school district for that contracted year. For that
Okay.
policy issue on that last
Policy,
page.
district policy.
Good.
Is that okay, the way I have it? All right, so this is the penciled in with the changes that I know about, keeping in mind that there may be places where it says board and it should say district, and I have not corrected all of those.
Yes.
Do we understand that, Claudia?
That would give them something.
It's something to start with, but I have, that's yours. This is the other one, that was handed to me. I'll go through mine and start working on those changes for board and district while you're doing that.
And then we did, how many copies?
Can't make copies tonight, can you? Make copies.
Can,
Rita, would you care to do me a favor?
What do you need, copies? Is your office
determine that. You can do front, back, staple.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
That way then everybody will have something
To look at.
to look at and leave with, and,
That's good.
I'm making a cross out just for your purposes on the first page of paragraph 7, where I have it as percentage paid to the RO school district, because I thought I was talking district as a board there. So just the percentage paid to the district is all I should say there without the parenthetical putting it.
Perfect. So as I get changes, I will keep updating that link on your thing, and I'll text you when I've updated it. We'll just keep updating it.
Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock.
In here.
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 Pick it up minutes.
It's the district that amends the school calendar,
Pick
correct?
up the notes.
What's Karen did.
The district changes the school calendar, not the board, correct? The district changes the
District
calendar.
does.
Okay.
Well, the board approves it. It's just a, it's contained without it.
I have
But it's
the,
a district calendar.
I had the district, it should be the district reserves the right to amend the calendar, rather than the board amending it, correct?
The board would approve it.
Approves.
So you through with me?
No, I like to sit in there. Why don't you get over here and sit on this side?
No, I don't want to.
Don't do it. So before we leave, I'm just going to get all these agendas and some concert tickets.
Okay.
So I'm passing out Thursday's agenda that will be posted and the rest of the story like I do, because those links won't be open until Monday afternoon, and I didn't want you to be waiting. Technology director on vacation. And as I update item 4 and 5, I will text you out that there's been an updated version loaded. I'll work until activation happens. And Laura Deegan is giving out tickets to a concert. Laura Deegan.
Hey, you better come, it's a good concert, Summerscape.
Yep.
Some of us are playing it. Does the board utilize the equipment to review, or does the district?
Excuse me.
Does the board periodically utilize the equipment to review each route, or does the district? The district does. Hey, I'll take one of those tickets. I got a better attention. I'm not wrong. Here you go.
Uh-oh, see that?
Okay. So we're just gonna turn until we get that. Okay. All right, we're done with the business up here, and if everybody, bus drivers, hangs around and gets the penciled in contract from Ms. Swafford. So, I need a motion to adjourn.
Somebody's gonna stick around and help me make these revisions of which is board and which is district, please. That's my request.
That's fine. We'll hang around. We're gonna go ahead and adjourn. Okay? Motion to adjourn. Anybody? By Mr. Johnson. Seconded by Mrs. Ahorn. All in favor?
Raise your hand. No?
Oh, it carried 6-0. All right.
So that's what I'll call the order.
Yeah.
Secretary.
PJ will figure it out.